morning. Should we get started? Probably get started. All right. So I think we'll get started. I usually do not stand here in front of the mic, but we are recording today's session for the thousands and thousands, the legions of CE faculty out there. So Vicky will be also on the mic as well. So thanks for coming on a Friday, or no, on a Tuesday afternoon at 5:30, and on a day where the temperature is plummeting by like 50 degrees and there's projected snow and rain. So we appreciate your time. And so my name is John Hogan. I know some of you guys. So I'm a Department of Medicine, assistant professor in the Division of Nephrology. Welcome. And we have Vicki Mulhern here from the Department of Faculty and Professional Development. And so why Mythbusters? So just first of all, you're really here to hear what Vicki has to say, right? Because I am learning this with you guys. This is the whole point of this, is to sort of do it together. And what prompted this was that they sent out this email maybe like a year and a half ago asking for people who were interested in being on the CE Society steering committee. This is now the Meadows Society. And so you show up to one meeting, and there was 5 of us, and they're like, okay, you guys showed up, you're on the steering committee. And as we went around the room, amongst the 5 of us, each of us was kind of mentioning things about promotion on the CE track, and Vicki was like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and these were people, and I actually was going around the room thinking that everybody seemed a lot more educated than me as to all these documents and things like that. So I felt both reassured. Christoph was one of them, and I felt both reassured and completely unassured at the same time. So I said, when we were thinking about ways that we could bring people together with the Meadows Society, maybe thinking about a Mythbuster session as a first attempt to sort of level the playing field and answer some questions. And we have a small group, so feel free to ask us questions as we go. Yeah, and I will also say, so this is the third one of 3, and we have learned a little bit about things. And I think one thing that I will say is that we'll be going over sort of CE-related policy, some of things that are policy, and for those things, we want to give you a reference, right? We don't want to be like, oh, that guy just said it that day that I stayed late, and he just said it, because that's what we do, right? We hear things from our advisors and from other people, so we want things that we can actually go to, but there are department-specific considerations, and so making sure that we understand when those considerations are taken in the context of the overall policy, may be able to address partially during this, but may not, and those would require interaction with your departmental co-ops as well. So we shall go. So number 1, CE track faculty are required to have grant funding for promotion. Is this a myth or a fact? Myth? Myth? Maybe? Myth? Myth?
Okay, who thinks it's a myth? Raise the hand.
All right, well, here's my animation. That's about as good as it's gonna get. It's not gonna get more high-tech than that. So get used to it. So yeah, so when we go to the co-op guidelines for specific, actual policy level, so here's the link. When talking about moving from assistant to associate professor, specifically says grant support when available. So it's not required. However, I think that the theme that we've talked about is basically, our scholarly activity, our demonstration of expertise requires time to do that. And how do we protect that time? And that comes to the use of grant funding. So Vicki, I don't know if you want to chime in.
Yes, and actually we have a division chief here too, a chair from CHOP, who would probably say the same thing. If you want to protect your time, there are only certain list of options there, and this is probably the whole list. That you get some grant support or funding from someone, whether it's local or NIH or whatever your funding agency may be, that will not only give you some flexibility with your time in accordance with whatever your division or department guidelines are, but also give you some fodder for research and scholarship. So, and it may not be just your grant support. This is the beauty of the CE track, I think, in that is highly collaborative track. So someone else may have the grant support that you can also benefit from. So any way you can protect your time to invest that time in doing some other things, research, some kind of research that you can publish on, because you have to have a focus for this track that you will be using in your selection of extramural consultants to take a look at your achievements when you go up for promotion. You have to have a very focused area to say what you are good in, what you are expert in. So this may help you to contribute to build up that expertise.
On the academic plan, on the academic plan, one of the lines you have to fill out is the time allotted for academic work.
Yes.
And that is even pre-grant. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
for everyone to
exactly.
be promoted.
Correct.
So what is the expectation? One, how much percentage is the expectation from Penn? Is there an official number? And secondly, what's the expectation from Penn where that should come from when we hire that person?
When a CE is hired, probably over the last 4 years, we have increased this. In the first 3 years, there has to be anywhere between 20 and 30% coverage by the department. And that's to give a leg up, yes, by the department, local support, to give a foundation to the faculty member to start to build a program. After that, it's expected that the faculty member will apply for and get funds.
For the department to cover.
No, it is not expected.
I think that this actually I always, I am happy to hear other people's thoughts, but bringing it, everybody's a little anecdotal as to what they've been through, other stories that they heard. But I think that this is the thing, is that one of the challenges, once we understand that this is not required and that there's grant support that obviously is expected, is how to increase the chances of getting that support. And that guidance and mentorship and is highly variable. And I think that's the thing, is so, being hired to, you're expected to do this within 3 years. The question is, do you have a plan, and are we getting the correct guidance? And I think that part of the Meadows Society and Christoph's session in the spring will be a little bit on grants, but really is to form a community where I personally have felt, I've had some very good guidance, but in other ways I think I could have been guided differently. For example, industry-sponsored trials and how I'm negotiating my salary support off those. I have 9 trials now, and only now am I actually understanding how much percentage I'm supposed to be getting off of every trial, and that would have been good to know up front. And so I think, having a community that we can share that information about, so we can be more informed consumers, especially as we try to, build up that protected time.
Yeah. I would also suggest that one of the things you might want to do is we put on our website the pictures and descriptions of faculty who were promoted over the last year. And going through them, we do highlight these kinds of areas and go through and then just contact people and say, how did you do it? You all know successful people in this track. Get their advice on how they actually did it.
Yeah, and come to the session. I think, again, so for me, I think we have lots of people who are interested. For me, another email is like another task for me, and then the chances that they're not. So come to them, think about if the society can be useful to you by sharing these ideas. I think that's the idea. Okay, number 2, I need to have a certain number of publications to be promoted in journals with the highest impact factors. How many people think this is a fact? How many people think it's a myth? All right, very exciting. energy level going up. It's a myth, same exact animation. All right, so this is the number of publications on the y-axis is over time, on the x-axis over time, on the y-axis is number of publications. So this is going to full professor from associate professor on the CE track, and you can see the range is between 237 to 27. So a very wide range with an average number of publications around 80 to 100. That's been fairly flat over time, as you can see. This is going from assistant to associate. Again, up to 129 down to 28. So you can see with an average around 50 to 60. And Vicki has pointed out that this does include book chapters. This does include reviews. So these averages include all of those things.
That's correct. So in terms of the actual journals, so the easy answer is, where do the specialists, experts in your field, what do they read? What journals do they read? It's not typically for all of you Cell Science and Nature. That's just not, those are, the high impact journals that the dean's going to refer to for status in the field and that kind of thing. But that's not where your readership, where your experts are going. So the high impact part of this is, what impact are your publications having on your field? I can tell you from the thousands of extramural consultant letters that I've read, it's the reference to, oh yeah, her article on such and such, I give that to my residents all the time. Or that work that was in blah, blah, blah journal changed the practice in that area. Those are the kinds of things that people are looking for. So it's what kind of impact have you yourself had on whatever field that you're in? And that should be relatable back to your scholarship. And the numbers, as you see, they are all over the place. Yeah.
So I'm somebody who publishes is it specific to our specialty? Like, does it have to be in our specialty or more our area of research focus? Because I'm somebody where my research focus goes across about 3-4 specialties.
That doesn't matter. That's fine.
Bouncing around through their different journals. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I've been processing it, learning from Vicki and just hearing other people's stories, it's kind of how we're telling our story in that personal statement as we go up for promotion, how we are putting it all together and telling the story. As Vicki will talk about, the people that are reading our personal statement as you go up the co-op chain are not in our field. And so how are we building the story that across these 4 disciplines, or that my review article was very important for the field, or that demonstrated that I had clinical expertise that was unique? Mm-hmm. As somebody who's predominantly clinical like myself, I think it's how you build that story, and that's the most important thing. Yeah. The other thing that I'll tell you, so I went to somebody who had been on co-op committees in the Department of Medicine in the past for guidance, who was well respected, and I was showing them my CV a few years ago, and they were like, these are good, like pretty good. So it'd be great if you published in like JAMA. And I was like, that would be great. Since nobody in my field has ever published in JAMA before, because I'm in glomerular disease, which will give you all PTSD from medical school, so that nobody has ever published in glomerular disease ever in JAMA. So that would be pretty great if I published in JAMA. So it was a relief to hear that this was not really, expected for me to do something that has never been done ever before, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an underlying thing with these numbers we have to understand is, if you look at the numbers, these are over 10 years, 10 years or 9 years. Oh, yeah. So if you divide this, let's say approximately by 10, it's 6 publications a year. And remember, if you do 1 publication or 2 and you have other team members with whom you collaborate, then it's fewer publications per year. Yeah. The 60 is over 10 years. That's something we need to understand.
One of the things that is most important is that you have a continuous record of productivity. If there are any gaps on your CV, you need to be ready to explain them. And I'm just the comment on the personal statement. That's really in your promotion dossier, the only opportunity you have that it's your voice explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it. So if you ever go to any of the presentations that David Margolis, who's the chair of COEP, where he presents and he talks about the personal statement, he'll tell you to start working on it now. So you should have a flowing work on that statement so that when you're comfortable with it when you finally get there, that it should be a real representation of your work for whomever is reading it. Like, you know, I was an English major HR professional. I need to understand what you're saying, what you're doing, and why you're doing it.
And then the last thing I'll say is that these are not all first or last author papers. These are all papers. So even a middle author, these numbers include all of those for totals. So, all right. Number 3, being literal. I can be a successful CE faculty as a clinician and educator, as the name would suggest. Is this a myth or a fact? How many people think it's a myth that you can be successful? How many think it's a fact? All right, so, well, this is my, so I think it's a fact, but, so this is so there's a document which I was unaware of until about 3 weeks ago called, it's the prototypical pathways. And these are a bunch of different descriptions of different paths that you can take for examples of boxes that you can put CE faculty into. So one of them is the clinical scholar pathway. And the second and the third one that they mentioned, I'm not skipping, somebody asked like what happened to number 2. It's not that I'm like hiding it in the dark web from you. There are 6 of them. And the other one is outstanding medical educator. And so if you go to this document, you can see that there are well-established pathways, but the key is that we are doing this in a scholarly fashion, that we are not just teaching, that we are publishing and having a scholarly activity in the clinician and or educator spaces. So
That's right. So you can write about your clinical work, you know, and what you're doing and changing ways of doing things and having impact on your field doing that. The beauty about the CE track is that there are so many pathways. And there are, which we'll talk about more, even people who are not doing clinical work, so in the traditional sense. So it gives you an opportunity to define your own career pathway in many ways. The key is always, 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 no matter what you're doing, and I think the outstanding medical educator is a very good example. If someone says, oh, I have fabulous teaching data, just fabulous, so I'm an outstanding medical educator, our question would be, is that what your publications are about? Are they about residence education or UME or whatever? If that is not the case, then you are an outstanding teacher, but you're not in this pathway. You have to publish in the area of the pathway. So many people fulfill the traditional description of clinician educator. You're doing scholarship, teaching, clinical work. But then there are other pathways that you can go and still be a very successful CE.
Everybody okay with that? Did I hedge my bets on that one? That you could have gone either way at 5:55 on a Tuesday? All right, number 4, there are non-physicians in the CE track. Myth or fact? Oh, okay, yes, good.
Yay!
Fact. So there are many non-clinicians. As you can see here in the prototypical pathways, clinical scientists with specific expertise, and they do itemize out a few different, specific type of roles like head of clinical laboratory, biostatisticians, clinical epidemiologists, informaticians, clinical psychologists, focused clinical scientists, and clinical bioethicists. And so, there is a community for us to forge collaborations with, which is easier said than done, but that we are on similar pathways with regard to promotion.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of growth in the bioinformatics area in Penn Medicine. You probably all know that. Almost every department is including someone in bioinformatics. So it's not unusual now for a CE to go into that pathway. We traditionally have biostatisticians and clinical epidemiologists. We have a department of biostatistics, epidemiology, and informatics. So they've actually defined that path for that department. The medical ethics and health policy department have a number of, they're growing significantly, a number of medical ethicists particularly who are CEs.
Do you mind if I ask which department you're from?
Biostatistics, epi, and informatics, but I'm a sociologist, so I'm
Okay.
very weird. But I'm happy that there are a lot of different diversity of paths.
You're in it.
Yeah.
We don't think you're weird. We're all weird.
Yeah,
We're all
in
weird.
medicine.
We're all CE,
acceptance
right?
of weirdness here.
All right, number 5, my time as faculty at another institution doesn't count towards my reappointment and promotion at Penn. Did anybody have time at a previous institution, or is this a moot point for, all right, maybe it's a moot point. This is mine, because I was at a previous institution. It goes towards discussion of reappointment and promotion timeline. If anybody asks you, it's a myth. I have tried to get this in writing from multiple people, and there is no policy. There's clear precedent, and I think we can probably fold this into the overall discussion when we get to some of the other myths about ideas of timeline promotion and things like that, and maybe we'll come back to this if it's relevant. But if you have coworkers, colleagues who have been told that it does not count, it is incorrect.
That's actually right. If every time your CV is looked at, it's looked at in entirety. So the time at other institutions, your clock starts here. We don't say, okay, you were 3 years at NYU, so we take 3 years off. The clock always starts here, but there may be on the part of the department the decision to go forward what looks like early promotion at Penn. But then the explanation is you have to consider that there were contributions that were made before the person got to Penn, and we're considering that when we're moving this person forward.
So how do you do it in practice? So if someone is having the 3 years cycle appointment, and there is going to be promotion after the third one, but you're saying if I'm counting, let's say, the 3-4 years before, that means I could have had the promotion after the second appointment.
Correct.
But for early appointment, my understanding was that you need extraordinary achievements that are never really achieved. And so it is really early, a promotion becomes almost impossible.
Okay, so
Yeah. But if you only consider the years, then it would be possible for
Right.
a number of people.
That's right. So a couple comments on that. First of all, if a faculty member is going up early, there on the chair's recommendation, there is a section to say if this recommendation is early, what are the reasons for doing that? So you make your case right away. Say, we don't consider this early. We consider it a full, whatever, 9 years or whatever. We've been extremely, 100% successful with early recommendations.
Based on
Yes. Even if somebody's here, for the 9 years and they send them up at year 7, we've been lucky. Now, why are we lucky? It's probably not luck. It's because the people made their case for, so I'm a firm believer, if you're looking at somebody's dossier, don't look at the date they started. Look at the dossier. Did they make their case? So, and that's all well and good, but you really should be slam dunk going up at that point for several reasons. One is the previous provost and actually our dean want to make a decision on sufficient amount of data. So 5 years is probably not enough data. You know, because when you guys get promoted, it's pretty much you're here for life. Unless you sit down and don't do anything, you know, you've proved yourself, okay? So it's not as if you're going to be reappointed as associate professor. You're appointed, that's it. The biggest risk of all is that at this university, this provost will only review someone in the tenure CE and research track faculty coming up for associate professor once. If you are not approved and it's an early promotion, you're out, you're done. So that's why, you know, I would prefer that when you look at the dossier, you have made your case without hesitation. So it is a very, very significant risk.
Yeah, and I think another way to frame this, because this was all, again, I'm literally just learning this in the last few months, but one way to look at it is that when you are hired, it's a countdown until you are required to go up you have to go up for promotion by year 9. So you have 9 years to make the case for you being promoted. If you're counting up to when you think you should be promoted, then that is a very subjective decision. If you are doing amazing things or have previous years, you can make the case, but your case needs to be strong because the stakes are high. And I think because if you go up to the provost level, but the job of the department and the School of Medicine is to make sure that people do not go up to the provost unless they have a very high chance of success for promotion, which is evident by the very high success rate of CE track promotions that go to the provost.
Oh yeah, we're highly successful. Most of the work in this process is done at the department level. It should be done at the department level. They know you best. All your development should be supported through there so that by the time you get to co-op, it should be easy. And most cases are. Most cases are easy at co-op.
Right. So we'll come back to this promotion timeline a little bit through some of the next ones as well. Okay, number 6, utilizing the 1-year extension will delay my promotion. So first of all, who here knows what the 1-year extension is? Okay, well, maybe we should.
Oh my.
So yeah, so this is good because I think this is what happened. So I didn't ask that question during the first 2, but it was clear during the second one that some people were vocalizing that they didn't even know what it was. So I think this is good. This is why we're here at 5:06:03 on a Tuesday. It's worth it, totally worth it for the 1-year extension. So Vicki, why don't you explain what the 1-year extension may be, and then we can go into whether it's a myth or not.
This is one of the most important policies that we have at Penn. And we actually figured, if you go back and look at your offer letter, you'll see we referenced this policy in there. But you know, you only look at it when you need it, like any other policy. So for tenure, CE, and research, those are the tracks that we have that have mandatory review. There is a university policy that says under certain circumstances, you can extend your clock, your probationary period. And the extension applies to the appointment that you are in. So you're in a 3-year appointment period. You can have that period extended to 4 years and have a review for reappointment in year 4. So what are the circumstances under which you can apply for this extension? There's a birth of a child or adoption of a child, your serious medical condition or a medical condition, serious medical condition of a family member, catastrophic event. And that typically applies to someone with a research portfolio, a lab. A lab blows up, or we have all kinds of situations. I'm dealing with 2 of them now. We think this policy is so important that we went back to the provost in the last few months and asked the provost to consider expanding the reasons for extension. So we created, and they did accept, a category of, or distribution of categories between professional catastrophic event or personal catastrophic event. Your house burns down, right? That's a personal catastrophic event. It's going to cause a little disruption in your house. What was not a selection previously, which we added, was a death in the family. That was not a reason for an extension. So we got that added. There, also, we tried to emphasize the importance of seeking mental health help if you need it, and that being a reason to get. It already is, but people don't ordinarily consider that serious medical condition, but we do, and we think it's very important. People's mental health is very important. So there are certain, obviously, very personal things that might come up in something that's considered a personal catastrophe. So we would have offline discussions and send that through the system in a very confidential way. So you'll see changes on that coming forward. This part of it is, if you are on a 9-year probationary period and you have an extension in your first year, or you can have 3 of these events total. So making your 9 years 12 years, plus a terminal year. But what it'll do is, it obviously, if you move your first appointment from 3 years to 4 years, the date of your mandatory review is going to be moved out 1 year. You can say, I don't really need it at the end. And if you and your department agree, you say, I'm not going to use that extension that was approved for me. That's perfectly fine. It will not be considered an early promotion. It's just you chose not to use it. You had a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious in terms of thinking about the events that would allow you to take an extension. What's the process by which you get one and prove that like, what's the process for that?
Yeah. So when they first came up with even serious medical condition, I actually took the stand that I'm not giving any documentation to anybody. So that has held. We don't do it because it's when these are reviewed by the Provost Staff Conference Subcommittee. Lisa Bellini is our representative because she's Senior Vice Dean. So there's representatives from different schools around the table, and I did not agree that anything that we submit should be anybody's business but ours. So you say there's a serious medical condition, you sign off, that's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My son was very sick. I would like to request that. My department told me, it doesn't matter whether you use it or not, just apply because it's a
Correct. Yes.
And it may benefit you, and it will not hurt you. So
Correct.
the process, like, I didn't give you any information.
No.
It's like totally on my own.
Right. It's one form. It's very simple. Do it, do it, do it.
But you can do it and later revoke it.
Not do it? Yeah.
So it's good to do it. but
Correct.
not use it.
Correct. Because you
At the
never
time
know.
when you want to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite is when people, the first child, I tell the story all the time, when they're going to have their first child and then they'll come to me and say, it's really not going to change my life at all, having that, right, And I just burst into laughter, like, you have no idea. You have no idea. Sign this form. So,
You don't get 2 for twins.
You
There's
do
no
not get 2 for
I've
twins.
asked. I have twins. They're not
Them at different times.
Yeah, exactly. How far apart? So yeah.
That's right.
One more day.
one at once,
Yeah. It's like a 23-hour stay right in the hospital. So the idea was did you have a question?
Actually, two-part question.
Yeah.
How soon do you need, or late can you apply for the event after it happens? And what is the time frame of births of children with appointments? So if you were appointed on July 1st, but your child was born June 29th,
Correct.
is that
It's actually 1 year either way.
1 year either way?
So 1 year from the date, so you're already a faculty member, so 1 year from the date of the event, right? You can go backwards too. So we have people who had a child within a year before the July 1st of the appointment date. can apply for that as well.
It's within a year.
It's within a year. So most of the, as you can guess, most of the extensions that we get are for children. So it's 1 year from their date of birth. Correct. I can't help you with that.
Just apply for them at the same time, right?
That's right.
And so I think that the impetus to have this as a myth or fact is that, how does it, well, here it is, the policy, here's the actual policy. But the idea is that, again, one way to reiterate what Vicky is saying is that it gives you the buffer for either a delay in your reappointment, whether it's first or second, and it gives you a buffer before you need to go up for promotion if you decide that you want to use it. But you can take the 1-year extension before either of the first two promotions, first two reappointments, but still go up at 9 years, the regular time of promotion. So you can go up even if they're not congruent with one another, if you think your story is acceptable. And so again, I applied for the extension for after my third child. And then now there was all this like, well, am I going to go up for a reappointment yet? And I wasn't given really clear guidance on whether that was going to delay my promotion. I didn't want to delay my promotion. I want to make a higher salary sooner. So I said, so this was like a lot of back and forth, and I thought that there was a lot of different opinions. So you can make it work, but I do think that if you're not getting the clarity on what your options are, then please use the Meadows Society and please use the Department of Faculty Professional Development to clarify what the actual policy is, and then work with your department chair and your department co-op to clarify that, to make the best plan for you.
I think the strong message you should take away from this policy is that everybody wants you to take it. Everybody wants you, the provost wants you to, co-op doesn't care, just do it. Use it, don't use it, nobody cares, but it's there. It has no influence whatsoever on your review.
Just, Vicky, if you delay your reappointment, like you have a child now, you take it, and then you delay your appointment, but the promotion is after the third one, then you automatically have delayed your promotion, isn't that?
But you can just send them up early. You can send them up when it looks like it's early.
But you send them
Yeah.
after 2 years?
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of the next one
That's
being
correct.
3 years? Excellent.
Correct.
Thank you.
This making sense? Yeah, the clock up. I was, anyway. All right. Yeah, just take the extension. If anybody asks you, your colleagues, just tell them to take it. If nobody knows how to do it, actually, this happened to me where I put in and then nobody could find the paperwork. It was just like lost. So a lot of fun, but we got it. If you are turned down for promotion at any level, department, school, provost, co-op, you can change you can just go to the old ace in the hole, AC track. Like, it's all good, right? Year 9, I'm going up. Get this, no, and then up, it's okay. I'm just gonna sidestep over here to the AC track. Is that acceptable? All right, I guess I was leading the witnesses there. So in this 10-year probationary period, as an assistant professor, you can change categories no later than 5 years after the initial appointment. And the idea here, as the way Vicky has been explaining it, is that the second reappointment is very important, because after that, it's like the point of no return, right? So after the second reappointment, your next evaluation is for promotion. And so the department and the school better be sure that you are a good chance of getting promoted. And so at that point, this is one of the reasons why this 5-year, and so if you take the 1-year extension and you go to 7 years, let's say, then it would be pushed ahead to 6 years. So if you have your second reappointment at 7 years, then this would be that should actually be at 6 years. Does that make sense? Yeah. Did I explain that properly?
Before, yeah.
I'm getting there?
We can't be sending you up for the next reappointment. Once you pass that, first of all, the fundamental part of this is it's a different job. So it's not, AC is never the fallback. position. It's a different job. So, and we have, highly successful, qualified academic clinicians. So it should not be seen as, the next level down. Our leadership of the health system, much of it is being driven by academic clinicians. So if there is a change in your career direction and everybody agrees that you align more with the AC track than the CE track, that is a valid discussion, of course. But you can't be reappointed the second time. That's too late to do any kind of change. So within the faculty, there are some restrictions. Now, the different reviews for getting, if somebody goes up, and we go back to the early promotion, if somebody goes up early in the CE track, gets turned down by the department, no harm, no foul, you can come back again. If you get turned down by the school co-op, you can come back again. That is a very, very bad thing to do because the letters have to go out again to the extramural consultants. So we are telegraphing to them that you didn't get promoted the first time. So it's not a good strategy at all. So always just going up for promotion, be ready to go up for promotion. But track changes are pretty strict here. Yeah.
Like the 6 year is like this kind of critical moment.
Right.
Why the 5 years was picked up, not the 6 years?
Mhm.
It's kind of point of no return, like
Right.
either you crash or you succeed.
So the question is, why do we say year 5, not year 6? Because year 5 is where the department decision is made. When they give it to us in our office, it's year 6. So it's in the last year of that appointment. And honestly, at that point in time, the department and you as the candidate should feel, I'm on my way into promotion, because the first review is at year 8 in the department, not year 9. We're out in the field with your letters in year 9. So if you look shaky at year 6, that's a problem. Yeah.
All right. Number 8, I cannot take a sabbatical. So really, why are we doing CE track, right? It's just because we get a sabbatical. That's really why we're all doing it, right? That's like the ACs don't get sabbatical. I'm only doing it for the sabbatical, basically. That's not true. Video camera that's recording me with my division chief watching at home. I cannot take sabbatical until I am an associate professor. If the answer is a myth, is everybody looking at flights after this? All right, so this seems to be a fact. So Vicki feels very strongly about sabbaticals and talking about them, and she has lots of great information. There was actually other sessions that are had at the school where she provides more information about sabbaticals. We may try to fold some of those into the Meadows Society, because I feel like that's another area of mentorship that we could all use, is how to go about thinking about sabbaticals and talking to people who have gone on sabbaticals and all the things that are considered. So I don't know if you have anything to chime in on, Vicki, for this.
So the university, this is a fundamental thing that some universities do. I'm shocked that Hopkins doesn't, but the University of Pennsylvania provides an opportunity for faculty who have been promoted to associate professor and above to take a sabbatical. You are earning credits towards that sabbatical right now, since you started. So you earn 2 credits each academic year. So it's 1 credit per semester. 24 credits, so 12 years earns you 1 year of sabbatical. Now, everybody in this room has a distributed salary between an academic component and a supplement to base. It's only the academic component that is included in the calculation for the sabbatical. So we have a special policy in the School of Medicine that provides a ability to take a compressed leave. So you take the value of the sabbatical and scrunch it down to try to substitute for your full salary. So, and it gets complicated, but it's really only an arithmetic problem. And we can go into further discussion at another session. But a sabbatical, if you know any faculty who have taken sabbatical, they are 100% going to tell you it's the best thing they've ever done. Because it's supposed to be something to refresh, renew, and bring back some contribution to add to the university scholarly research community, clinical community. Something new that you learned, something that you taught, some new procedure. We certainly have had that. It's not necessary to leave Penn to do it. We have something that they have called a stay-batical, which I think is kind of funny because it's still the regular sabbatical. But there may be somebody that you want to work with, maybe School of Engineering, maybe law, maybe Wharton, whatever, that can be done under the umbrella of a sabbatical application. So, as I said, the university is very anxious to support these plans. Payment for that sabbatical comes from the employee benefits pool. There's contributions from your department every time you get paid to the university to contribute to the EB pool, out of which contributions like your health insurance, your retirement plan, workers' comp, all that come, but also sabbaticals get paid out of. So it's something to think about for the future. And we will offer sessions of people who have done this, and they'll tell you how they did. The planning is the hardest part. The sabbatical is the easy part. Putting your family together and deciding what everybody's doing and working out how many months, that's not easy. Patient changes in your patient arrangements are difficult, but we do have faculty who do some exchanges in the division. I'll do this now and I'll cover for you later. So there are many things that you might be able to do, but it is something to think about for the future.
And I think that you had mentioned that only about 15 to 20% of faculty take sabbatical.
Small number, yeah.
So-
More are figuring it out, how to do it.
I think this comes down to some mentorship though also about, do you have people that can do you even know you're eligible? When are you eligible? How do you work out, how can I pay my mortgage
Exactly.
while I'm away?
Yeah.
I just rented out to a fellow, which is one of my house out to a fellow, right? Yeah.
Or trade
No,
houses with somebody.
Trade house, yeah. So I think that there are, ways to get creative, but obviously, we shouldn't need to do this alone. So I think, again, using our community to help us out. All right, number 9, we're getting to the last 2. I cannot go up for promotion to associate professor until I have my second reappointment. I guess we already talked about this. So this is a myth. No resource for this. But again, going up the idea, and actually the nice thing about this, I think it was the first session, the lunchtime session was like packed. The 7 a.m. session, it was okay. This is pretty good. We did have somebody in the back of the room who said all the same things. I was at another institution. I went up early, so we had kind of I didn't plant that person in the back to just, tell lies. So it was a good person to sort of bounce things off of. Okay, last one. Extramural letters are letters of recommendation. So the letters that we send out to vouch for our value to the academic community in our field are letters of recommendation from people outside the school or within the school. They're letters of recommendation. No, they're not really letters of recommendation. So this is where's the, oh. Yep, there we go. Yeah, so here's the actual document, and here are the resources there on the bottom. And they are not letters of recommendation. They are letters of essentially what is your value to the community. They're not vouching for you personally. They are giving an opinion to our university of what your value is to the greater community. So I don't know, Vicki, if you want to chime in.
That's correct. So the solicitation of the extramural consultant letters is done by Faculty Affairs. So, and we protect the confidentiality of those letters. There are 14 that are solicited by us. 11 are designated by your department, 3 are selected by you. They should be, you get one chance from your 3, the department gets one chance from the 11 to include a person who has a closer association with you. Otherwise, no collaborators. These should be arm's length. You may not have ever seen this person. They may not have ever seen you. The purpose of this letter is for experts in the field who are peer institutions, and I'll come back to the peer institutions part, assess what you have done. That's what they're doing in their letter. They're assessing by what they receive about you and your personal statement, like your CV, your personal statement, and some of your reprints, and they're making an assessment based on that pile of paper. So they may have heard you speak. They may have been on an NIH study section with you. All that's fine because they're not collaborating with you. Those of you who do very large studies where there are people like 100 on them, you may never have met some of these people. That's fine, and you'll list what that is. You know your participant, you submitted whatever for whatever the project is. That's fine, but otherwise they need to be removed from you. If there are faculty at Penn who can provide commentary on something that you're doing, they are a collaborator and they could add to your story, particularly if you maybe collaborate with somebody in engineering for another school. It's very valuable for your department to solicit those letters. But the extramural letters, you cannot have any close association. You also can't contact them. Nobody can contact them except for us. They're held extremely confidentially. So it's like, what have you done? This is, again, why your personal statement is so, so important. But every time there is a name given, either by you or by the department, there has to be a bio. You've been down this road, Casa. There has to be a bio of the person to convince us and convince the provost's office that that person is worthy of having giving an impression of you. So they might be, journal editor or president of their national association, whatever. You should always have professors. You can only have a maximum of 2 associate professors, but professors look better, obviously. The peer institution thing, you may be in a field where the expert is not at Harvard, Stanford, Chicago, Northwestern, blah, 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 blah. Maybe that, in another institution. That bio that's given is going to explain why they're on the list. That's perfectly fine. Some are in niche fields that, whatever. So it doesn't matter. You just have to be convincing of that these people are that good that they can talk about you.
So the extramural list of some of the universities that Penn recommends and regards as peer institutions are already listed.
It's the U.S. News list.
That's the okay, but I thought it was your list from.
Yeah, it's US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if somewhere they're outside this,
It's fine.
it's fine. We just need to give explanation.
Make your case.
Yeah, and they can be overseas institutions too.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Yeah. The university has a limit to 3 international institutions because they're not as familiar. The systems of evaluation is different in terms of advancement. Yeah.
I have a question. How is it handled if, given that these are often professors who are incredibly busy who may not know the person?
Yep.
How is it handled if there's no response? Is that tipped against you substantially?
We only get about 60% responses.
Okay, so it's expected.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they'll typically give a reason. One of the things to do is make sure that person is still alive. That would be good if you did that, because we've had that.
Are we contributing to that list?
You give 3. You give 3.
So the other 11 that we have no role with?
No. Now, some departments will say, particularly if you're in a very specialized area, like, I don't know the people who are, who should be contacted. So they can ask you for a list of like 25 or so, and then you'll say, these are my 3. it's up to you to decide to use, not use the list, and then you're not to be told. Yeah, and there's no follow-up with anybody. Yeah. We try, my colleague Vivian Fisher, she is politely on these people every few weeks. Yeah.
So those are the 10 myths. So if you have any questions or comments that we have Vicky here. And also after this, if you have any feedback for the session, this is like a first pass. We did it 3 times because we wanted to make sure people could come on times that they were able to make it. I have to drop my kids off. That was always bothersome to me. It looks like this great session, but I have clinic that day or I got to drop off my kids that day. So we are doing that on purpose for all the sessions in the Meadows Society, recording one, doing 3 different sessions at 3 different times on 3 different days. So if you have any feedback for this session or things that you think we had one faculty member who is struggling because some of the things that he had been told by his department chair, these are things we want to make sure that we are able to address as a community together. And so please feel free. We as the steering committee members, we are facilitators. As you can tell, I don't have all the answers, but our job is to try to get people together with others who can give you the answers that you need. So any other questions or comments?
Can we invite you in the departments to come and give the same lecture?
Yeah, that'd be fine with me. Yeah, as long as I have Vicky with me.
Provide even better food.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
Follow food.
Well, again, we've kicked around, is this important information that should be given when people are hired? Give it to people when they're first hired, and we're kicking those. So I'm just thinking out loud, but that this is, even the timeline and things like that of people who are considering a job here or hired to have this information up front, and thank you for coming as a department chair. This is important that we are on the same page. Jordy? Yeah.
Really interesting. So we're in the same division, and I think I'm probably 4 years junior to you in terms of appointment.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah.
Something like that. And so right before your time, I was a postdoc fellow and was invited to. In our division, we had sort of a half of a day that was dedicated to going through all those points as a postdoc. So in that position, that was incredibly valuable because I sort of had expectations of what should I look like to even get hired and what should I look like once I am hired in terms of what my expectations will be here or if I was looking for jobs elsewhere too. And so I think that is something that this should be offered to anybody who's either, or at an instructor level or at that level where they're thinking about transitioning, some version of this where if they want to be educated on what it looks like, it would be super helpful. The other things that they talked about along with that in that day and why it was also just a useful day in general, mostly just understanding the difference between a CE and a tenure track and what that would look like. And then the other thing was mentorship and just really understanding, I think it could even be done better, understanding difference between mentorship and sponsorship and how to identify that on a faculty level, which is just so different than when you're a postdoc or just when you're sort of more of a professional mentee.
Yeah.
So there's a couple suggestions. One is I hope you're all aware, and there are references come from these, for the FAPD website, but also the FLPD website, Faculty Life and Professional Development. Under Career Management, there's each track listed, and you can go through, see what's required during the appointment period, the reappointment period, promotion period. It's fabulous. There's also a new section on mentoring. So the initial, it will be rolled out in full pretty shortly, but there's a lot of materials on there. And I will commend my colleague here, Karen Shalla, and Stephanie Titano for overseeing that. And the original focus in the mentoring part of the website is the mentee toolbox. So how to be a good mentee and sort of drive your own bus. Yeah, so I would strongly encourage you to take a look and play around on the website. There's a lot of good information.
These questions are so important. It would be fantastic if you do just these questions, a 1-2-page document for everyone to have it with
Yeah.
the input. Just brief. It shouldn't be a long thing, but just the brief. It's the way you present, just that. Yeah, that would be really helpful for many people.
that will also encourage people to go into, because there is a fear going into the CE track. with all these, and some of it are really a myth, and it's not reality. So it would be really helpful. Just a
Yeah,
small bit.
great.
So there are so many documents already.
I know,
This
yeah.
is just as a myth.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is a myth. This
Yeah.
is the reason. This is short, and everybody can see it, and then you have the reference website. That's fine.
Yeah, and all these slides are available to, well, they are available to the people on the email list, and this is also online too. So yeah, but if we had
Send
it
Yeah.
to the Cs, yeah, to the people who signed up for the Meadows Society, yeah. But they, anybody can have them, really.
So it's a really good point. So one thing you need to keep in mind is we really want you to succeed. I mean, that's why we're all here. So that's our goal, to make you, as good as you, help you be as good as you can be, and get through this process. And then come to the reception for promoted faculty, because it's really fun.
Well, thanks so much again. We appreciate it.
Thank you.